Hi there. Today we're going to learn how to subtract integers. You already might know how to subtract integers using positive and negative chips. Today we're going to focus on subtracting integers using the rules. So our objective for this lesson is obviously to subtract integers. Hopefully by the end of this lesson you'll learn how to subtract integers. Alright, before we begin, I just want to make sure that you know how to add positive and negative integers. You won't be able to subtract unless you know how to add. So, first make sure that you know how to add before continuing to watch this video. Next, you need to make sure that you know that opposite integers are integers that are the same distance away from 0. So, -3 and +3 are both opposite integers. In other words, -3 is 3 spaces away from 0, and +3 is also 3 spaces away from 0. That's what makes them opposite integers. And also, I need you to know that additive inverse is just another way of saying opposite. Alright, so when you are subtracting, you are adding the additive inverse. Or you can just think of it as adding the opposite. So, in this example, -5 minus 2. To begin solving this, we're going to just take that -5, we're just going to drop it down. We're going to keep that -5. Then we're going to add the opposite. So that minus sign is going to turn to a plus. And the opposite of 2, the opposite of +2, is -2. So, -5 plus -2. In other words, we are adding the opposite. Adding the opposite of 2 is -2. So -5 plus -2 gets you -7. Or, if you're unsure about this addition sentence, you could just do, I have 5 negative chips, I add 2 more negative chips. How many negative chips do I have total? 7. Alright, here we have some examples of subtraction problems. So we have -10 minus 7. First thing I'm going to do, I'm going to keep that -10. Just going to drop it down, keep that -10. Then I have -7. So what I'm going to do with this -7 is I'm going to add its opposite. So that minus sign is going to change to an addition sign. I'm going to add the opposite. The opposite of 7 is -7. So, -10 minus 7 changes to -10 plus -7. -10 plus -7 equals -17. Okay, all I did was add the opposite. The opposite of 7 is -7. Let's try this next example. I have 5 minus -2. I'm going to keep that 5. Then I'm going to add the opposite. The opposite of -2 is just +2. So 5 plus 2 equals 7. Don't worry about these parentheses. They're just kind of a way of differentiating between this plus and negative, negative, and I just dropped down the parentheses here just because above it had parentheses, but you don't have to. Alright, so here, my next problem is 3 minus -8. I'm going to keep that 3. Then I'm going to add the opposite. The opposite of -8 is +8. So 3 plus +8 equals +11. Alright, in this last example, I have -3. I'm going to just keep that -3 the way that it is. Then I'm going to add the opposite. The opposite of -5 is +5. -3 plus +5 gets me positive 2. So far, so good? All right, here are 2 more examples. At this time, I would like you to pause the video and try to do these 2 examples on your own. Once you are done, you can hit play again and see if you know the answers. All right, by now you should have already done the problems, so we're going to start going over them. I have negative 2 minus 8. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to keep that negative 2. Just bring it down. Then I have minus 8. I have minus 8. So now I'm going to add the opposite. So the opposite of 8 is negative 8. So now I have negative 2 plus negative 8 equals negative 10. And the last example, I have 9 minus negative 2. I'm going to bring down that 9, just keep the first number. That minus sign is going to change to a plus because I'm adding the opposite. The opposite of negative 2 is positive 2. So 9 plus 2 equals 11. Okay, so I'm just keeping the first number. I'm switching the operation, and then I'm switching the sign. So I'm keeping the first number, and then I'm just adding the opposite. All right, so concluding thoughts. You keep the first number and then add the opposite. In other words, keep the first number, switch the operation from a minus to a plus, and then switch the sign of the second number. Or you can also think of it as adding the opposite or additive inverse. All right, I hope you learned how to subtract integers.